And then I'm going to turn the time over to the judges. They're going to introduce themselves. Then you guys are going to introduce yourselves to the judges, and then we'll start from there. So I'll turn it over to the judges now.
Well, hello, Nevada. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Are you guys in Nevada, or did you go to DC and you've been touring DC?
We're in Nevada.
I wish.
You're in Nevada. Oh, okay.
Would be nice.
Where are you from in Nevada?
Reno, Nevada.
Reno. All right. Very good. Okay. Well, we'll do some introductions and we'll get started. I'm Jack Barlow. I'm a professor of politics here at Juniata College in Pennsylvania. And Rita?
I'm Rita McCannon. I'm a lawyer in Huntsville, Alabama.
Tim Moore from the University of Wisconsin in Madison at the Center for the Study of the American Constitution.
And would you all introduce yourselves and your teacher, please?
Gladly. Good afternoon, judges. We are Reno High's Unit 2. My name is Zion Duse-Puri, and we are coming to you live from the University of Nevada. Like I said, my name is Zion Duse-Puri, and I will be attending the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City. Go Tigers.
Good afternoon, judges. My name is Gabriel Ferrito, and I will be attending the University of Nevada. Go Pack.
Good afternoon. My name is Shelby Hunsaker, and I will be attending Brigham Young University. Go Cougars.
Good afternoon, judges. I'm Aiden Pritchard, and I'll be attending the University of Nevada. Go Pack.
Good afternoon, judges. My name is Carrie DeBarger, and I'll be attending the University of Nevada. Go Pack. Our teacher is Mr. Richard Clark, and our unit coach is Mr. Sam Macalusa. And we're also so proud to tell you that we will be traveling to DC in May, so we're super excited about that.
Great. Well, I hope you have a good time. Well, thanks. And we're going to get started on Unit 2 here. The question for today is question 2, and I'll read it and we will begin our discussion. When explaining why the proposed Constitution lacked a Bill of Rights, one Federalist claimed that, quote, in a government possessed of enumerated powers, such a measure would be not only unnecessary, but preposterous and dangerous, end quote. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? Why or why not? In your opinion, did the first 10 amendments to the Constitution sufficiently address the concerns of the Anti-Federalists? To what extent, if any, should we consider adding additional amendments to our Constitution? You may begin.
In the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson writes, the history of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. His list of 27 grievances shows how the British government wronged the colonial people. The grievances are reflected in the Bill of Rights, which was both necessary and historically pertinent, contrary to James Wilson's belief.
The Bill of Rights is necessary in the way it addresses the most important aspects of the Declaration's grievances, ensuring they aren't repeated. In the Declaration, Jefferson complained of quartering large bodies of armed troops. The Third Amendment protects against this. He complained, the British deprive us of the benefits of trial by jury. The Sixth Amendment sparked the debate over Bill of Rights in the first place and guarantees that every person enjoy the right to a speedy trial by jury. He complained they have obstructed the administration of justice. The Fifth Amendment protects the due process of law.
In Federalist 84, Alexander Hamilton argued the Bill of Rights was dangerous because the rights not listed would not be protected. However, the Ninth Amendment allows the listed rights to be protected without discounting unwritten rights. Coupled with other amendments, the Ninth Amendment can be a powerful tool in both clarifying and protecting individual rights. This can be seen with the right to privacy implied in the First, Third, and Fourth Amendments, and established using the Ninth Amendment in the 1965 case of Griswold v. Connecticut.
The Anti-Federalists had enormous unanswered concern, but the first 10 amendments did address their concerns about protecting individual rights. Brutus II summed up the Anti-Federalist thoughts. Freedom is necessary to be yielded by individuals. The Bill of Rights has served as a declaration of individual rights through cases like Miranda v. Arizona in 1966. The Supreme Court used the specific language of the Fifth Amendment to decide people were entitled to know their personal rights against self-incrimination.
Though the Anti-Federalist concerns about individual rights are addressed in the Bill of Rights, they had several concerns left unresolved. One such concern was the open-ended nature of the executive power in Article 2. In Anti-Federalist essay, Philadelphiensis, the author expressed this by saying the President General with unlimited powers would be a king to all intents and purposes.
The Anti-Federalist grievance about the Commerce Clause in Article 1, Section 8 wasn't resolved in the Bill of Rights. In a group of six, James Winthrop called the Commerce Clause an unlimited right to regulate trade. In the 2012 case, National Federation of Independent Business versus Sibelius, the Supreme Court clarified and limited this right, but it still doesn't appear in the Bill of Rights or in an amendment.
Amendments can help codify inalienable rights, and when those rights aren't sufficiently protected by stare decisis or statute, they must be guaranteed and clarified in an amendment. For example, the right to abortion was protected in the 1973 case of Roe v. Wade and reaffirmed in the 1992 case of Planned Parenthood v. Casey, but is currently being contradicted by state-to-state regulation like the Mississippi Fetal Heartbeat Act. An amendment protecting abortion could also protect the integrity of the court's decision.
In addition to amendments addressing national issues, other criteria for adding an amendment is to define another part of the Constitution, such as the 14th defining citizenship, or to clarify or repeal a previous amendment, such as the 21st repealing the 18th. Amendments that meet this criteria could address issues like gender discrimination, the extent of the executive power, or the tenure of judges.
Amendments are constantly being proposed and considered, but strict rules in Article 5 prevent most from being ratified. After nearly 250 years and over 11,000 amendments, there has never been an amendment proposed through the convention process, and it took nearly 203 years to ratify the 27th Amendment.
Currently, 17 states are calling for a national convention to bring up congressional term limits, limit the size of the federal government, and consider fiscal restraints. These amendments would serve as declarations for America, acknowledging and rectifying government wrongs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So you talk about, you raised the concern that the Anti-Federalists had of the unlimited nature of executive power. How do you think we could address that unlimited nature of executive power? Because it certainly seems like the imperial presidency has become a real issue. So how could we fix that?
One
By
way that we
using
have already addressed this concern is by having a three-pronged test when it comes to executive orders through the Supreme Court case of Youngstown v. Sawyer. What this allowed was us to able to see if executive orders were constitutional and see how to evaluate them when comparing it to whether it aligns with Congress' interests as well.
Additionally, by using the means in the Constitution of the checks and balances given to the other two branches of government, for example, taking a suit to court against an executive order, such as in the decision of, or in the court case Korematsu versus United States, which brought up the executive order 9066, which interned Japanese Americans.
One way that we could regulate the executive's power in the future is through an amendment that would provide negative rights to the president. This could be modeled after Article 1, Section 9 or Article 1, Section 10, which are negative rights to states and Congress. And it could include things like not allowing the president to hire members of his family in his cabinet.
Additionally, some things already are in place to limit the power of the executive. For example, the levels of scrutiny. Former President Trump's travel ban on Muslims didn't even pass a rational basis test, so it was not allowed to pass.
It's also important to note that Congress can override a presidential veto, which is a way to kind of get some of that power back from the executive.
Okay, thanks.
Are there specific rights that you have thought about in your own lives that you might want to see protected that are not already protected, or conversely, are you concerned about some rights that are afforded to us now that we might be in danger of losing?
One right that I believe is being threatened currently is the rights of LGBTQ and more specifically transgender people in America. Their rights to equal protection under the 14th Amendment and also life and liberty are being jeopardized by anti-trans legislation in states such as Arizona and Wyoming. This could be rectified in an amendment that would further protect them using the due process and equal protection clauses of the 14th Amendment and grant them the rights that we all should have.
Another right that is being infringed upon is with people with felonies. Currently, people with felonies in multiple states are not able to vote after getting a felony. And additionally, capital punishment has been an abusive and inherently racist structural implementation within our government, which can be clarified and be fixed through enacting the Racial Justice Act, which would prevent people from being having capital punishment due to their race.
Let's go back to the beginning. I'm often fascinated by Jim Madison. He originally doesn't want amendments, and then later on leads the charge. How do you explain that flip-flop?
In
James
Federalist
Madison-
26, Hamilton writes that there must be a power for every single contingency of government. And this relates particularly to the way that government adapts over time. And it was used specifically with Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, or the Necessary and Proper Clause. But the basic idea is that government and ideas adapt over time, and James Madison is a byproduct of this.
James Madison was also swayed by the ideologies in anti-federalist papers such as Brutus II, which exclaimed that, or which stated that certain rights should be fundamental and a baseline for all of the country, setting the floor for rights where states could then build upon further in more specific rights, or whether they want to build different means that might be more effective for their region. This was shown in his staunch support of the separation of church and state when he vetoed an act that would incorporate a church into the city of Washington, D.C.
Building off of what my colleague Gabe said, it's clear to see that James Madison had a change of heart in regards to the Bill of Rights. While he didn't support it in Federalist 84, after the Bill of Rights was passed, he actually advocated for the protection of these individual rights through his letters such as Memorial and Remonstrance, which protected the freedom of religion that didn't appear earlier in any of his Federalist papers.
Thank you.
So talk to me a little bit more about how you see the Declaration of Independence setting up the Bill of Rights. Is there stuff in the Declaration of Independence that didn't get translated into the Bill of Rights, do you think? And if there is, what would you translate?
Many regarded the Declaration of Independence as the Bill of Rights before the Bill of Rights. It stated exactly what problems they had with Britain's government. And a lot of it did get translated into directly into the Bill of Rights, such as the life, liberty, and property being changed into the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, which is reminiscent of Lockean philosophy, being translated into not only the first, fifth, and multiple other amendments to protect those ideals that were laid out in the Declaration.
Adding on to what my colleague Gabe has said, in the Declaration of Independence, there was the ideal of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. However, this wasn't sufficiently protected through the Bill of Rights and implemented in them. For example, in the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson originally included a section about slavery and wanted to talk about how the right of liberty would also extend to that. And that was also not in the Declaration of Independence, and it wasn't later added into the Bill of Rights until the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments.
Another example of, on the other hand, there were things that were in the Declaration of Independence that didn't make it in the Bill of Rights, but they were also protected in the body of the Constitution itself. For example, the Declaration of Independence talks about how the king took away charters and ravaged the land and seas of the people. These things are protected in the body of the Constitution through Article 1, Section 8, which grants Congress the power to maintain an army.
So there are restraints on the power of the executive. So are we relying on Congress then to restrain the power of the executive? And how well has Congress done at that?
We don't only need to rely on the power of Congress to restrain the executive. The president doesn't act alone. He has a cabinet who's also helping him in making decisions, and as well as the Supreme Court, who can check the power of the executive, as seen in cases such as US v. Nixon.
Additionally, in Federalist 69, Alexander Hamilton reasons that the president, with the checks and balances of both Congress and the judiciary, are different, vastly different from the King of Britain or the governors under the Articles of Confederation, because not only do those two branches of government check them, by proxy, the people that elect and people that elect the members of Congress are then checking the president as well.
Additionally, Federalist 10 talks about the idea of factions and how a multitude of ideas can create essentially a diversity of opinion that would limit the expansion of one or two particular factions. And this multitude of ideas has allowed Congress to check the president.
We ourselves can check the president. Like the Declaration of Independence, we can have our own list of grievances that we can submit to our representatives and express our faults that we have with the president and changes we want to see as well through the petitioning process.
Where do
What if
rights
we-
come from?
Can you repeat the question?
Where do rights come from?
Rights come from many different places. For example, the natural rights of us as human beings, separate from the fundamental rights given to us by our government of things such as life, are inherent in many different governments and are represented through legislation and amendments that protect that, such as the cruel and unusual punishment clause of the 8th Amendment.
Does it matter? Does it matter where they come from?
It does not matter where they come from. It just matters that we uphold them, especially in courts. Like the judges in courts exist to protect our liberties and our rights. And the Bill of Rights dictates the judge's ruling, not the other way around.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm going first. I'm sorry. So I really like, you may have picked this up from my follow-up question. I really like the fact that you provided a framework, right, with the Bill of Rights, with the Declaration of Independence, informing the Bill of Rights and informing the concern that the framers had with the ways in which government could attack those rights. I'd encourage you to look again at the list of grievances, because what's interesting about it is that there's a couple of different kinds of grievances, and the whole right he has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our laws. Right, that's Parliament. That's who those others are, and the Declaration is in many ways a rejection of Parliament's assertion of jurisdiction over the American colonies. So there's some interesting stuff going on there, not all of which is relevant to Bill of Rights considerations, but some of which is. You talked about the Sawyer case. I think you were talking about Youngstown Sheet and Tube against Sawyer, correct?
Yes.
And I might have used it differently. I'm not sure it supports the point that you were hoping to support there in terms of executive orders. And in particular, the concurring opinion from Justice Jackson, right, lays out some very clear criteria, but it's much clearer than the majority opinion. And that's the one everybody uses now. So it's an interesting kind of problem there. So I thought that you did a nice job of showing us what the framework was. I can quibble with you about details. That's also kind of the trivial pursuit part of this. The main point is you had the architecture clearly in mind. And in your opening statement, you were willing to give us a vision of how that architecture fits together. So I appreciated that. You guys are clearly well prepared to deal with the conversations that you're going to have as a citizen for the rest of your lives. But I do have to ask, are you going to the University of Nevada at Las Vegas or University of Nevada at Reno?
We are going to the University of Nevada, as there is only one University of Nevada in.
It's the flagship.
Okay. Well, I kind of figured that, but I just had to ask.
Okay, I'm not from y'all's zip code. Is that a joke or is that for real?
It is very much for real since before UNLV was founded, it was just the University of Nevada. And though it was changed to the University of Nevada, Reno, it was changed back since we are the only University of Nevada.
So what town are you going to school at in fall?
We will be attending the one in Reno.
Ah, okay. See, I didn't know. And so I didn't know, these two guys may have gotten it, but I didn't know. That's kind of like saying University of Alabama at Tuscaloosa,
Mhm.
which is not the same as the University of Alabama somewhere else.
That's right.
So, okay. All right.
Anyway, thank you.
We'll quit hammering. Y'all did great. Thank you very much. Tim, did you get to say the last word?
Oh, yeah, I thought your framework, to Jack's point, your framework was well thought out. I was especially interested in your handling of Bill of Rights connections to the Declaration of Independence. You did a quick T-chart comparison, similar, different. I thought you handled that very well. I would suggest you to consider the background and the historical context of why Madison is maneuvering the way he does in Congress. I would like to hear a little bit more about that, how he basically ignores most of the legitimate anti-federalist critiques and kind of throws them a tub to the whale in just offering them rights. Because a lot of the rootin' tootin' anti-federalists hated the Bill of Rights. They thought it was a diversion. So maybe beef up on that a little bit, but I think your analysis was good. It was very good. So I appreciate the time we spent together, and good luck at the University of Nevada.
At Reno.
At Reno, yeah.
At Reno.
I have to step in. There is no University of Nevada at Reno. It's just the University of Nevada. UNLV is another part of the state we ignore. So don't anymore.
That Henry? Who is that talking?
Their
That's
teacher,
their coach.
two-time alumnus of the University of Nevada.
It's like the Ohio State University.
Exactly right. Don't screw
Okay.
us anymore. Right?
The
There's
university.
one University of Alabama. Is it too?
No, I'm sorry, there isn't. There's another university in Alabama that we favor a whole lot more.
I know, at Birmingham. I understand.
No. That's all right.
Auburn.
We're gonna let
Auburn.
you go.
Auburn.
Auburn.
So let's call
Thank you,
this and get a
President.
final congratulations to the
Thank you,
team.
guys.
Congratulations.
For an excellent job done. A lot of hard work has been put into this, and we commend you for that. And we'll let you guys log off and have a good day now that you're all completed.